we are rolling right along, Lisa, on episode 28 of our book on identity. Who am I, Lord? Okay, and so let's talk about in this area suffering and divinization.
Right. The basic message is that even in suffering and difficulty, we can be united and actually grow closer to God.
Yeah, and we were kind of talking about this in the last episode, right? That so often within suffering we can be perfected. I think the other part of this, Lisa, too, is that sometimes we're journeying with someone who is suffering, mm-hmm. and we can even be perfected in how we are dealing with that situation, because there is a level of suffering that goes along with someone who is a caregiver for someone who is suffering, and so often they're forgotten.
Well, and I think anytime somebody you love is going through some sort of suffering, that is pain. It could be painful.
Yeah, it can be very painful, and it can also be there's a lot of long suffering that goes on for both the person who is sick and the person who is the caregiver.
Yes.
And this can never be underestimated. In fact, in the last month, we've had 2 men die whose wives were long suffering. And I think that everyone thought that the wives would die first. And I was talking to Debbie, my wife, about this and saying, the level of stress that is associated with, what am I looking at?
There's a pelican out there. I'm so sorry. I love pelicans.
I'm like talking about a very serious topic here.
See him flying away?
Yeah.
Sorry,
we'd love to show you the pelican, but we can't. But
you were talking to Debbie, sorry.
Yes, that there's a lot of stress that goes along with being a caregiver for someone. And so in some ways, it's not necessarily surprising that because of all of that stress that the person...
It affects their health.
Yeah. Yeah, that they actually die first. So the next section in the book, as we are now moving away from the pelican that was out there.
So the pelicans are a symbol of Jesus. Because and they're also in the Last Supper, we talked about the Last Supper, last episode, and there are in the upper room there's engravings of pelicans.
Yeah, so that part's not in the book. That comes to you directly from Lisa. Amazing extra stuff that you get in this class. So the next section of the book talks about the weight of glory. Okay?
Yes.
And
there's a C.S. Lewis quote that talks about our neighbors. What is it, Deacon Dave?
It may be possible for a man to think too much of his own potential glory hereafter. It is hardly possible to think too often or too deeply about that of his neighbor.
Huh.
So, I mean, we should care as much about our neighbors as we do about ourselves, right?
True, right.
This evangelical Catholic class that we're doing talks about how we should be looking out for the lost sheep and how other people are doing. So, I love what the book says. Next to the Blessed Sacrament itself, your neighbor is the holiest object or person that your senses are perceiving.
And in loving your brother, you are honoring that which is most godlike in the visible world.
Yeah, and I think so often, Lisa, there are some of our brothers and sisters that we don't want to love because it's difficult. Mm-hmm. And so how we love them, right, depending on the situation, can be quite different.
Right.
Okay. There are people that are easy to love. Then the more difficult people we may have to pray for, or we may go that extra mile. But I think we should never give up hope.
Right.
Right. And we should never stop seeking their good.
Right.
And willing their good and praying for their good.
Well, that's what love is. Willing the good of the other.
Yes, exactly. And so, if we enter into, envy or hate or whatever it is, even if we're being mistreated, not a good place to be. And I think this can certainly be a struggle that maybe at some point in your spiritual life you would just say, no, I'm completely justified in being upset at what's going on with this person. And yes, you can be...
But that's not who God is calling you to be.
Right. You can be justified in being upset. You can have righteous anger, but then you still need to love.
Yeah.
So often what comes along with that is no love.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So how about this for a challenge or takeaway? Is there someone in your life right now that you need to be loving, right, or willing their good, that you are doing something else? Be like the pelican. Be like Jesus. I'm Deacon Dave.
I'm layperson Lisa.
You like that tie-in, didn't
Yes, that was great.
Yeah.